From the MercyOne studio.
Welcome, folks, to The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Every week, diving deep into the truth of Catholic social teaching and restoring all things in Christ.
The Uncommon Good is on the air. I'm Bo Bonner.
I'm Dr. Bud Marr.
And we are coming to you live from these United States of America. Myself, I am here in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm the Director of Mission and Ministry at Mercy College of Health Sciences and the Director of the Zeta Institute for Foundation and Ethics and Leadership. You can find us at mchs.edu and at zetainstitute.com. Bud Marr is coming to you from Pittsburgh, but it's a very special day in Pittsburgh. And no, it's not the Pittsburgh Pirates, because they're not doing any good, and the Steelers aren't doing great either. Bud, it's your birthday, buddy, and I'm going to embarrass you. Happy birthday, Bud.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
The Mike Gundy.
Yeah.
I'm so wonderful that you get to throw that out. 40 years old, man. Did you think you'd make it this far with all of your high blood pressure and anxiety?
No, I didn't know, but I'm glad to be here, and now I'm just walking the hallways of work shouting Mike Gundy quotations, and all my coworkers are confused.
Right. They didn't get to live through that brilliance. Well, at least not in conference. They probably only saw it a few times, but you and I, we got to have that etched upon our memories.
No, we've talked before. That was the golden age of college football for both of us. So
right. Yeah.
We're just running on fumes these days.
Yeah, but now you're in
the Chicago Cubs.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, that, I'm saying we as if we belong to the St. Louis Cardinals, you and I, Bud, but we went to Wrigley and swept them. And it's been pretty great talking with folks like, we're just throwing out names like John Leonetti, who I think had their feelings permanently hurt on that one. Although the Cardinals had to pay for it last night. I don't know if you saw this, Bud. They played till 3:30 a.m. and I think went 20 innings only to lose. So, yeah, it was crazy. So,
and you take the lead in the 12th and still find a way to lose at 3 in the morning. But, oh well. I was at the Pirates-Cubs game last night.
Yeah.
And Hendricks threw a no-hitter through 5. So it was like 1-0 in the 7th. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates piled 9 runs on the Cubs, and I just felt bad for him, man. It looked like someone giving up.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go out on the field and help them, but as a fan, you're not allowed to do so. So
you just wanted to go give them a hug and say, like, I made it to 40. You can make it to the 9th inning not giving up 9 runs.
God bless them.
God bless them. Well, Bud, now that you're 40, do you have any quick insights for, everyone out there, being that you are now perfectly wise and able to see, to the root of all causes and things?
Well, you mentioned my high blood pressure and anxiety, but I feel like the real key is getting past the ages 15 to 18. That's the real dangerous time period. Once you make it to the 30s, at least for myself, I was already kind of an old man.
You were coasting. Yeah. Well, it's good to know that you were coasting, straight to virtue, Bud. Coasting straight to virtue.
How'd the Faith and Healing talk go last night?
Oh, it was great. So Letitia Ochoa Adams, keep messing over her middle name. We talked about that last week. Folks, if you get a chance to see her or go read her stuff, it was absolutely fantastic, and it just really cut to the heart of the matter. She had important things to say, and the people who were there, you could tell that they really did have a lot of their eyes open. A lot of things changed. A lot more people carrying the pain of suicide loss, or at least knowing people who have struggled with depression and things like this. And it was wonderful to see people have someone that they could relate to and talk to, as well as Letitia. I actually dropped her off at the airport at 4 a.m. because her flight was at 5 going out to Atlanta. But she made it out to the East Coast, so that was fantastic to have her in. Now, that was all part of Mercy College's Mercy Week. So, of course, Mercy College underwriting our show, and we're always thankful for that. And that's actually going to be the basis of our talk today. So Mercy Week is called so because yesterday, September 24th, was the founding of the first House of Mercy by Catherine Macaulay and her like-minded sisters in Dublin, Ireland. And so this whole week, most Mercy institutions, but particularly Mercy colleges as well. So we are Mercy College Health Science in Des Moines, but there are, of course, several throughout the land, and they try to do acts of mercy, bring attention to mercy, all through Mercy Week, this first week in which the Sisters of Mercy were founded. So we're going to talk about mercy itself today in two ways. The first half of the show, we're going to have our good friend Julie Weldon, who is a pro about the history of the Sisters of Mercy, and she's going to come on and tell us a few interesting things about their life and pointers to what to gain from considering their works of mercy. And then Bud and I, in the second half of the show, are going to dwell on mercy more in itself, talk about it in terms of the social order, what it is and what it is not. But all of this to honor Mercy Week, the Sisters of Mercy, Catherine McCauley, and then our underwriter, Mercy College of Health Sciences.
Yeah, no, I always look forward to this week at Mercy College. Have you kept up the tea tradition?
That's going to happen right after I get done with the show. Going to drive back over, and we keep up. We do tea and scones, and so in many ways, this is a really good example of what Catherine McCauley is about. So on her deathbed, instead of saying like, some great Iconium or like a theological tract or like, can you help me? She said, please put on a strong pot of tea. The sisters who are coming for my death and funeral are going to be tired, and I want to make sure they're welcomed when they get here. So even in death, thinking about hospitality towards the other. And so we keep up that tradition in every Mercy Week. We do tea, and then, people use that. They're like, well, tea, how about scones? So we're like, all right, we'll throw in scones too. So tea and scones, if you're not doing anything from 11 to 1, just stop by Mercy College of Health Sciences, and we would love to welcome you there as well. So that's what we have on tap today. Julie Weldon, Mercy itself, the Sisters of Mercy. Stick around. This is The Uncommon Good, and we'll be back right after this. But if folks want to interact with us, it's easy to do. All they have to do is use the Zipwhip line. 515-223-1150. That's 515-223-1150, the Zipwhip line. You can interact with us on the show or leave a message. Just do hashtag UCG for The Uncommon Good, and you can leave us a message, and we'll try to answer it on the show. Particularly if anybody out there is listening has any stories they'd like to talk about Sisters of Mercy, anybody who has memories of them here in Des Moines, we would love to feature them in the show for today, or even if you had interactions with folks elsewhere. The Zipwhip line. 515-223-1150, 515-223-1150, your conduit to our ear, through our ear, into our brain, from our brain to our mouths, back over the airwaves. It's just that easy, folks. This is The Uncommon Good. We'll be back right after this.
Why do folks give to the Catholic Tuition Organization? Probably because they love Catholic schools, right? Well, partially, but they also like the tax benefits, or they were helped when their kids were in school, or they have been blessed and want to bless others. Whatever the reason, the 65% tax credits are great, and after all, it's for the kids and their future. Online, ctoiowa.org.
Support for Dowling Catholic Sports 365 is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic with 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling Catholic graduate, and Dr. Todd Pedig. The Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at Ashworth and 60th Street in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610. Online at ashworthvision.com.
Impoverished children break everyone's heart, but poverty seems like such a big problem. What can one person do to make a difference? For 17 years, Blessman International's passion has been to connect the resources of our donors with sustainable programs that impact the lives of impoverished children in South Africa. Our donors are feeding thousands of hungry children every week, providing basic water and sanitation for impoverished communities, and sharing the love of God in practical ways every day. Go to www.blessmaninternational.org and make your donation today. Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
Back with the Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show. Today, our guest for the first half of the show is a great friend of both Bud and I's. Her name is Julie Weldon. She's the research and project manager at MercyOne Population Health. She's adjunct faculty at Mercy College of Health Sciences, so she's a co-worker with Bud and I. But then especially today, we're going to mine the depths of her. She's a PhD candidate at the University of Iowa College of Nursing, writing her dissertation on the Sisters of Mercy's careful nursing model and how it impacts nursing practice. Julie, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, guys, and happy birthday, Bo.
No, Bud. Yeah, Bud's birthday.
I knew it was Bud. I just said Bo because I'm listening to your voice.
Yeah, no problem.
Bud, happy birthday, buddy.
Yeah, well, so, and then we need to get this out of the way because you two are a big Cubs fan.
Coming. I know it's coming.
So since it's Mercy Week, we're going to be merciful and just say...
have mercy on me, please, and the Cubs.
Yeah, better luck next year. So just, that's mercy from Bud and I. How's that?
Thank you. I appreciate it. They're not mathematically out of it, though. I just need to say that.
Oh, okay.
I always have faith in my Cubbies.
Well, so one thing that I have faith in is you're going to bring a lot of information to this show that Bud and I could not even begin to broach. It's Mercy Week. Every year this week we try to, at our Mercy institutions, do a little bit to reinvigorate the spirit of mercies, the Sisters of Mercy, not only the spirit of Catherine McCauley, but all of those faithful women that came after her and really did make a change in the world by their devotion to the charism of mercy and the various ways that they did this through education, through healthcare, and things like this. So, Julie, you're writing essentially on the method of care that the Sisters of Mercy themselves just sort of lived and then eventually had people look back and say, well, this is an entire system of care because they've just sort of lived it deep in their bones. I think some people, especially in the Des Moines area, people who have been in our class, have heard of Sister Catherine McCauley, but then whatever little they know about her, then it's a quick drop-off to maybe they've ran into a Sister of Mercy themselves. You mind telling us, like, what fascinated you about the Sisters of Mercy that you wanted to go devote, this extra time? You're a busy person, you're a mom, you have all these jobs. What about them made you devote time to deeply research how they took care of people?
Well, honestly, Bo and Bud, I really felt like it was a calling. I felt like I was asked to work through this process of bringing to light what the sisters have contributed to our communities and to our world for the last almost 200 years, 2 centuries of creating healthcare and educational institutions to respond to the needs of their time. And I was educated by Sisters of Mercy in both my elementary and then my undergraduate education. And as I found, going through my nursing education and found out how much the sisters have impacted nursing itself as a profession and healthcare as a service to the community and a right and a need for everybody, living, that I've just felt like the sisters weren't able or haven't taken the opportunity to put themselves in that type of light because they're very humble women who are just doing God's work. And I felt like I needed to take my opportunity with my education and my talents God's given me to write about this and study it more deeply so I can share it with as many people who are willing to read and listen about it. So, and I've been working really closely with Therese Meehan in Dublin, Ireland. She's an faculty nurse researcher at the University College Dublin. And she has worked very closely with the sisters. She's had opportunities to read their handwritten personal manuscripts that have been in the archives for 2 centuries. She's had opportunities to read other manuscripts from like Florence Nightingale and various nursing greats that have worked with the sisters over the decades. And so she has done historical research on how the sisters have impacted the nursing model in healthcare and the nursing profession itself. And she took it upon herself to start publishing this work. And as I read her work, I really felt inspired to keep moving forward with her work and not only recognize what she was discovering in Ireland, but also recognize that it's not just in Ireland that this has happened. It's really globally, and that I feel like it's an obligation to help keep this moving forward as Mercy institutions continue to help educate and care for the needs of the sick and vulnerable.
Julie, for Bo and I, it was always fun to introduce students to Catherine McCauley because I think there's something about the saints, and I'm going to call her a saint even though she doesn't have the official seal of approval yet, but, you know, they combine extraordinary works with, you dig into the details of their lives, and I think a lot of nursing students can identify with Catherine early on in adulthood, finding her way. Like you, I've been really impacted by the Sisters of Mercy, so I worked at a Sisters of Mercy retreat center in St. Louis and then taught at Mercy College in Des Moines. And I guess, I know we can't cover all of Catherine's life, but could you give listeners a brief glimpse into why the Sisters of Mercy have been so engaged in healthcare and how this is rooted in some of Catherine's life experiences?
Absolutely. So when you both mentioned Mercy Week being this week, Catherine's birthday is actually on Sunday. She was born on September 29th, and she, in the early 1800s, the Irish communities were really struggling with 3 issues. One, of course, was the Catholic-Protestant disagreements going on in the communities about faith itself. Then they had the socioeconomic impact of the potato famine because there was a blight that hit their potato crops. And think about some sort of blight or some sort of disease hitting the crops of the soybean and corn in Iowa. Iowa and Ireland are almost the exact same size from a land perspective, and we would be in a world of hurt if we had that scenario in our own state. And then the cholera epidemic was spreading throughout the community, and Catherine's family herself became sick with cholera, her parents specifically. And at that time, there was only one hospital in Dublin, St. Vincent's in Dublin, and the physicians that were running the hospital were assisted by the Irish Sisters of Charity because there were no nurses at that time. It wasn't even a nursing school in Ireland at that time. And so the Sisters of Charity took on that work of assisting the doctors in the hospital. But with only one hospital in the community, there was not enough room for all of those people who were sick. And so Catherine, knowing the sisters through her Catholic ties, and, of course, knowing physicians from her church community and her community at large, she asked them to teach her how to care for people in their home. And so she's basically setting up home health services for the first time without, really thinking about it that way. She's just responding to the needs of her time and caring for her parents and caring for other people in her social circle who are sick with cholera. And as the cholera epidemic spreads and more people become sick, and, there's less room in the hospitals, she reached out to friends, other women who were interested in her work, and taught them the same skills and techniques that the Sisters of Charity and the physicians had taught her. And so then they're responding to other families and friends in the community as well. And so that's all going on in the early 1810s in that era. And then in the 1820s, loses her family, both of her parents and another close family friend, and they leave her an inheritance. And being of a comfortable living standard, she didn't need that inheritance, so she felt called to buy a building on Bagot Street in Dublin, and that's what she opened up as the first House of Mercy on September 24th, which was yesterday, in 1827. And the goal of that institution, the House of Mercy, was to allow orphan children who had lost their parents to various socioeconomic or illnesses and then single mothers with children who were living on the streets because they also had lost their husbands or other financial means, and to get these people off the street and into a safe place and educate them and provide them with health care so they could become, functioning members of the community again. So that's like where it all started. And then she didn't really, her and the women that she was working with just kept working in the House of Mercy and then working out in the community. And it wasn't until the 1830s that the bishop at the time in Dublin and Pope Gregory the 16th suggested they become a religious order because of the support they were getting from the Catholic Church. And Catherine kind of investigated other religious orders at the time, and their missions were not aligned with the mission that she and these other women were accomplishing on the day-to-day in the communities. And so that's why she decided to start her own order, the Sisters of Mercy. And she really wanted to reflect God's love for his people through merciful works, and that's where she came up with the name, the Sisters of Mercy, was because she felt like her and her comrades were the healing hands of Christ and providing mercy to being the conduit or the servant leaders from God to his people, and the mercy that they were providing people on the daily basis.
See, and Julie, this is a fantastic summation about how this gets started. What often happens when people look at a founding person like Catherine is we talk about Catherine and then all of a sudden we zip to, and now here's why we're here in Des Moines. And even that is a fascinating story, but there's so much to talk about in between. One of the stories that I love that you were elemental in teaching me about this is, so in nursing, and of course we're all familiar with nursing, you're going to school there, Bud and I have taught at the schools where nursing's prominent. Of course, Florence Nightingale gets a lot of airplay, and absolutely she should. There's all sorts of reasons that she's understood as the mother of nursing. But as you like to point out, and you showed me the painting, in one of the most famous paintings of Florence Nightingale, she's in the middle, but if you look like two people over, well, lo and behold, there's a Sister of Mercy, because the Sisters of Mercy played a significant role in Florence Nightingale's campaign in the Crimean War. And so if you don't mind maybe talking about that story and interplay between Florence Nightingale and the Sisters of Mercy, because I think it does a really good job of pointing out the continued influence of the Sisters of Mercy, but also this idea of sort of mercy incarnate practically in and among the world.
Absolutely. There's actually two stories, if you don't mind me indulging, that I would love to share. The first one is, yes, that Florence Nightingale is considered the mother of nursing, but in a sort of an unorthodox way, I like to consider the Sisters of Mercy the grandmothers of nursing. And I'm sure there's some nursing scholars out there that would kind of give me an eye if I said that too loud. But the great thing is, Florence Nightingale was asked by the British War Office to open the first military hospital for the British soldiers during the Crimea War in the 1850s. And when Florence was setting up the military hospital, and all of these soldiers were being brought to her for their illness and their injuries, she realized she didn't have enough resources to care for all the people that were being brought to her facility. So she reached back out to the British War Office and said, I need more help. And the British War Office was like, sorry, Florence, we don't have more resources to give you. And for the last 3 decades, the Sisters of Mercy had been, making their presence in their communities in Ireland and moving into other areas of Europe. And Florence had heard of their reputation, and so she reached out to the Sisters of Mercy and said, Sisters, do you have any help you could provide us? And so the sisters sent 17 sisters, led by Mary Clare Moore and Mary Vincent Whitty. And the 17 of them came to the Crimea War Military Hospital and started working alongside Florence in providing that nursing care to the soldiers. And so in that painting you mentioned, Bo, is Sister Mary Clare Moore, and the artist, and his name escapes me right now, so I'm really sorry, I cannot think of his name, but the artist knew enough about the relationship between Florence and the sisters that he felt it was important to paint Sister Mary Clare Moore into the painting. So I think that's just really important to recognize. And if you read Florence Nightingale's most popular book is Notes on Nursing, And in my personal copy, she mentions the sisters and their work on pages 8, 10, 11, and 105 in my copy. And when they refer to the type of nursing they're providing the soldiers, they call it careful nursing. And so the sisters' nursing model has been now referred to as careful nursing as its official title because of the way they talk about careful nursing and how they care for the soldiers. My second favorite story is people who know anything about Florence Nightingale would know her nickname is the Lady with the Lamp. And she carried an oil lamp around at night, and she would tuck in all the soldiers before she went to bed herself. But in the morning, when she would wake up, they would have lost some soldiers overnight because people weren't up attending to their needs. And so one day, one of the sisters, one of the 17 sisters that were working with Florence, asked if she could stay up all night with the soldiers and attend to their needs overnight, and maybe they would lose less soldiers that next day. And Florence was like, oh no, we need to take care of ourselves too. We need our sleep. We just need to, get our rest and be fresh and ready for everything again in the morning, and we'll take care of them again. And the sister insisted that she stay up with them all night. So she did, despite Florence's recommendation. So you can thank the Sisters of Mercy for night shift.
Okay, that's good. All right, we're getting close to the end, but I think Bud has one more quick question for you, Julie.
Sure.
Yeah, Julie, I was wondering, I hope this isn't a gotcha question. This is a little more like you've been giving us a great picture of the history. I guess for myself, thinking about Catherine's ministry and the Sisters of Mercy, how they've carried that on, how would you say medicine today looks differently and maybe has forgotten important insights from Catherine and how she approached care for those who were sick and dying?
In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes. Sorry.
No, it's all right. So I think the important thing to focus on is, technology is helpful. The talents that we have been given from God can help us come up with these great technologies and findings and cures and things like that. And I think we focus on that a lot as like, what's the cure to save me from a situation when it comes to a healthcare perspective. But I also think there's so many other ways to think about healing and not just cure. Like St. Thomas Aquinas talks about flourishing, and flourishing doesn't always necessarily mean a cure. It can mean a happy death as well. And I really think that it's our responsibility as nurses and healthcare providers and all of the different professions in healthcare to remember those important pieces of mercy and healing, is that it's holistic and it's not just finding the physical cure for the ailment of the body that the body is suffering from, but to really look at everything from a holistic perspective, mind, body, and spirit. And the sisters especially focus on the spirit. When you look at some other nursing models, they say they're holistic and they don't all carry a spiritual component through the academic part of the model when you read about it or whatever. And so I just really think the sisters want everybody to think about caring for people in a holistic way, and so they can flourish, whether that's continuing on through life, like you are on your birthday, Bud, hitting 40, or at people at end of life, if it's a happy, comfortable death after living a good life, like St. Thomas charged us to do.
Well, Julie, we'd love to have you on more, but you have duty calls. Mercy Week is important, and they have many meetings, and so you came from a meeting and you're rolling on to the next one, and we really appreciate, especially on short notice, because we were dum-dums and didn't think to ask you until only very recently. So thank you for answering the call, thank you for being on the first half of the show, and thank you for the fantastic work that you do. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate being able to share today, and would love the opportunity to share more if you guys ever feel it fit. So.
Absolutely. No, we will definitely have you back. We'll have you in studio, and it won't be baseball season anymore, and we can all be true friends at that point. So this has been Julie Weldon, Research and Project Manager at MercyOne Population Health, Adjunct Faculty at Mercy College of Health Sciences, and then a Ph.D. candidate at University of Iowa College of Nursing, writing her dissertation on the Sisters of Mercy's careful nursing model and how it impacts nursing practice. Julie, thank you, and have a wonderful Mercy Week.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, Bud. Happy Mercy Week, everyone.
Thanks so much, Julie. Yep.
All right, folks, We'll be back right after this when we go to our commercials. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. This is The Uncommon Good. Stick around. We'll be right back. But if people want to follow Iowa Catholic Radio on the good old interweb, it's easy to do. You can go to the old-fashioned social media. No, I'm not talking about mail or the old saloon. I'm talking about the internet site, www.iowacatholicradio.com. There you can see events, you can check out the schedule, you can listen live, you can donate, you can sign up for our email, which is not cumbersome, doesn't send you many, just kind of peppers them in there through your week so you know what's going on. You can also go be our friend on Facebook. Just look up Iowa Catholic Radio. You can friend us, and then we will let the friendship appropriate to Facebook flourish and grow like a flower in spring. Or you can go to Twitter at IA Catholic Radio, and in little bits of 200 or so letters, we can let you know what's going on, and we can make sure that in your Twitter feed that you have some nice reflections about how to be a part of Iowa Catholic Radio, both through listening and what we're doing in and around the community. This is The Uncommon Good. We'll be back right after this.
Why do folks give to the Catholic Tuition Organization? Probably because they love Catholic schools, right? Well, partially, but they also like the tax benefits, or they were helped when their kids were in school, or they have been blessed and want to bless others. Whatever the reason, the 65% tax credits are great, and after all, it's for the kids and their future. Online, ctoiowa.org.
Thank you, Blessman International, for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Everyone lives their life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How we use that time directly affects if our life will leave a significant impact or not. Each year, Blessman International leads Central Iowans on a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
Here's your forecast on Iowa Catholic Radio. Looks nice for the next couple of days. Partly sunny through the afternoon. A little gusty, temperature in the mid-70s. Clear tonight down to about 52, low 70s, and sunny tomorrow. The weather is brought to you by Rock Valley Physical Therapy, outstanding outpatient physical therapy and sports medicine rehabilitation, with 7 convenient locations in the Des Moines Metro and Southwest Iowa area. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
We're back with The Uncommon Good. Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday, a very special Wednesday. It is birthday day for Bud. So, Bud, one more time, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you greatly.
So, we actually have a text in on the text line, the zip line, and it's specifically about you. So I read it.
Is it from my mom?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's from a 515.
Okay.
Do they have tea and French fries for Mercy Week in Pittsburgh? Will Bud have a French fry birthday cake? Happy birthday, #UCG. So obviously a listener who listens very close to all the stuff we're always talking about. Bud, do you have tea and French fries or French fry cake because you're in Pittsburgh?
Well, you know when you go to a coffee shop and you might see someone dunking a donut and coffee? We may or may not in Pittsburgh dunk French fries and tea. So if you're here, don't be surprised.
Okay.
No,
well,
I don't think I've ever witnessed that before, but I wouldn't. Potato usage, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law visited this past weekend.
Right.
And they were amazed by our inventiveness with potatoes.
The sheer amount of potato usage. Well, you know, I think we've told people this. I'm going to be partaking in the Pittsburgh potato life myself next week because, and we're talking about Mercy Week this week, but October is going to be the week of Newman's canonization. You're going to be over in Rome at one point in England, but then when you get back, a big old shindig at National Institute of Newman Studies, where you all have made the mistake of asking me out to go out there and talk. So, yeah, it's going to be a big old Pittsburgh time, and I'll be able to confirm to the listeners whether all this French fry stuff is just like a really long con joke you're telling, or if it's actually all true.
Yeah, I know we do have some Pennsylvania listeners, so if I could do a little plug, October 25th, come here, Bo Bonner, in person. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
211 North Dithridge Street.
Not too much anyway, so yeah, a month from now. So yeah, so that's next month. This week, as we just heard in the first segment from our wonderful friend Julie Weldon, Mercy Week, for two reasons. One, yesterday, September 24th, is when the House of Mercy, the first one, opened on Bagot Street in Dublin, Ireland. And then her Sister Catherine's birthday is September 29th. And then, Bud, your birthday's the 25th. You're pretty merciful. It's all one piece. But certainly in Mercy institutions, both the hospitals, the health systems, and our colleges, we celebrate Mercy Day and Mercy Week to celebrate our heritage and everything that goes with us. In the first segment, we really did hear about the history of the Sisters of Mercy and how what they did on the ground sort of incarnated this idea about mercy and what it means. So Bud and I thought we would get a little bit more chatty about theologically what we think mercy means. But I'm going to throw up either a softball, but maybe one with a little bit of a curve on it to you first. How do you think people get mercy wrong? We hear mercy a lot, and I think especially in our day and age, mercy will come off let's say in a more shallow or paltry manner than we actually mean it. So if you can start off that, maybe we can talk about what mercy really isn't, and then get into what mercy in the social order actually is.
Well, I think one area where myself and others tend to maybe get mercy wrong is, as Catholics with our theology, we of course have a strong sense and a venerable tradition of understanding what constitutes sin and ways that we can offend God. And whenever mercy enters the picture, I think there's a tendency to relax that tension. What I mean is the tension between a proper contrition for our sins and then recognizing that God is all merciful. So as people talk about this, as they think about this, one caricature that, for instance, Bo, that can enter into the picture is, for instance, with the Pharisees. So we use the word pharisaical in very pejorative terms. There's almost, in our culture, nothing worse that you can be than a Pharisee. And yet, as you dig deep into the Gospels and watch Jesus' encounters with this group, it's a little more nuanced than that. And he says to his followers, for instance, your righteousness must exceed that of the Pharisees. And so it's not that they got the whole picture wrong. They were actually pushing in the right direction. But there are ways that they applied the law or thought about the law that were actually ran contrary, Jesus says, to the purpose of why God gave it.
That's right. And so when we think about how mercy starts to work, people will do similar sorts of things where mercy becomes completely, the dork $15 word is antinomian, which would just mean like against all law, all order. The idea is that like rules themselves are absolutely wrong. And I think you're dead right that when you think about Pharisee, this is why, like, it's almost like Pharisee and merciful are opposed to each other. It's like if you came home and you're like, Mom, I'm a murderer. And she's like, okay, I understand. Well, at least you're not a Pharisee. That's how it comes off in 2019. And so the question starts to be then, Bud, is mercy this great destroyer or disregarder of law? Is that the essential nature of mercy, is to not really give two flips about the law?
Well, when I think about a proper understanding of mercy, my mind always goes back to the parable of the prodigal son. And it's fascinating in that parable because we think about how the father restores the son to his household. And even at the point where the son has what we would call true contrition or sorrow for his sins, he still, I think, is thinking with the wrong mindset. So he's sitting among the pigs, and he says to himself, I'll go back to my father and ask to be a servant in his household because even the servants there have life better than I do. But when he goes back to the father, what the father immediately does is he throws on him the finest robe, he puts a ring on his finger, and he says, let's kill the fatted calf and throw a feast. And I think what the Father is doing there, and I think what God often confronts us with, is he's asking us not to take lightly our sins, but to recognize our true dignity as sons and daughters of God. So through baptism, through the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, we're made heirs with Christ. And so the conversation changes a bit because it's not really like behavior modification. It's allowing the Spirit to fill you and to live into your full identity as a person of God. And so to me, the Father there, he's not, I don't think he's in any way downplaying. You know, it would have been better for the Son never to demand the inheritance in the first place. But when he's fallen and when he's living like a pig, like we so often do, the Father's answer to that is to show him mercy by restoring his dignity as a son.
I think I think you're really hitting on what's most important to consider here. Mercy is not opposed to justice. It can't be the case. Indeed, if you look at how many ethical manuals talk about this, mercy is a subset of justice. So justice being an encompassing cardinal virtue. So again, to dork out real quick, 7 virtues, 3 theological ones, faith, hope, and love, charity. 4 cardinal ones, prudence, justice, courage, and temperance. Justice has, I would say, quite a few subsets of the virtue that many of us kind of consider basic ones. So religion, right, as the justice we owe God, things like this. Mercy, as a subset of justice, can't be opposed to it. And I think a lot of people will almost put them as antipodes or sort of a binary opposition. You're either just or you're merciful. So what does it mean then, Bud, if we're going to put mercy as a subset of justice? And I think you hit the nail on the head. When the father in the prodigal son parable is insisting that the son who has now came back be put in the robes, be given the ring, to be reminded, you are my son, and nothing you do will erase the fact of who you are. Mercy, in a way, is prudence applied to justice. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the only people that can be merciful are people who, by right, have something owed on their behalf. And so what I mean by that, of course, is that God is owed our obedience. We don't like hearing it that way, but we don't mean this in a sort of draconian manner. We just mean, just like a child owes obedience to their parent, and again, all that means is, you don't like overturn the trash cans and set the dog's hair on fire or something like this, right? Your parents provide you a life, a place to live, food to eat, so maybe don't trash the place or back talk, right? When you talk about owing this sort of fundamental gratitude in a relationship, and you do this by following the commandments, well, what happens when you break them? And the thing is whoever has something owed to them, and then it is either taken away, abrogated, broken, however you want to put it, then it's completely the case that that person can, so to speak, demand satisfaction, repayment, all the sort of words we think of when we think of sort of rigid understandings of justice. But it's absolutely true, because if you don't have this understanding, you can't have mercy. Because what mercy presupposes and shows is that over against me taking what I could rightfully ask for, I think about a higher justice. I think about a higher good. I think about a higher relationship, right? Because all justice ever is that we are in right relationship. Each person gives to each other what they owe each other, and so that we can be in communion, that we can be one. So the merciful person says, I could ask for this immediate restitution, but I see the greater justice of you being reconstituted to me. And so I'll put aside these particular or smaller goods owed me so that this greater one, your restitution, our reunification, our communion once more, can be effected. And anyone who gives mercy does that. God uniquely can, so to speak, properly give mercy in every sense. Because anything that he does, it's really merciful to have created us, but that's more sort of like graciousness, right? Over abundance of love. But once we've offended God through sin, then everything he does is merciful to allow us to exist. I think St. Benedict makes a big deal about this in his rule. Every day that we exist is one more day that God is merciful to us so that we can come back to him. But any sort of mercy that he shows is because he's like, look, as God, I don't need any one particular thing. And you hear this again and again in the Old Testament. I don't want the sacrifices because I need them. It's not like I need a burnt goat.
Yeah.
You need to do this so that you can return to the source of life, a relationship with me. So God is constantly setting aside an immediate satisfaction or restitution he by all rights could ask for the sake of a higher justice, a higher order, a higher reunification. Now the question starts to be then, Bud, how is it that you and I can be merciful when the world owes us, so to speak, so little? And that's when you start to realize that there's entire groups of people, and Christians should be the chief among these, that we could think in terms of, in a strict manner of justice. So again, like you said about Pharisees, having a strict understanding of justice is not bad. It's just that stopping there or becoming obsessed with it misses higher forms of justice. So when I think about someone who, when Catherine is thinking about all these people sick with cholera in the street, she does not owe them help. Now, there's a way, right, if she comes up on a car wreck, right, I mean, I guess a horse and buggy wreck, right, we do owe it to each other to help each other in emergency situations. But if you're talking about just a very strict, basic understanding of justice, right, every human being can't help every single other human being on earth, right? We owe it first and foremost to our families, our friends, people we have ties to, people in emergency situations. But, what's Catherine going to do about every person who's sick in Dublin? Now, the thing is she could stop there, and in justice, she could have received the money that Julie Weldon was talking about, that she got as an inheritance, and she could have lived a life, and by all accounts, really probably wouldn't have been going against justice. But she cared about a higher justice, which is the justice of the great communion that we all have in heaven, and thinking of that justice, she gave more than anyone would say, the terms and agreements on a contract or paper would demand of her. And by that, she was merciful because she looked past an immediate call to any sort of restitution or what she was owed or what she owed someone else. And she went overboard to think about the higher justice. And in that way, imitated God, imitated Jesus Christ, imitated all the saints.
Yeah, and Bo, I think what you're getting at there, it's so crucial that Catholics live this out in our day. I'm sure many of our listeners have heard the news about the young man who raised a bunch of money for Iowa City's Children's Hospital, and then a reporter went through his old social media accounts and found unfortunate tweets from days gone by. And the only reason I bring that up in the context of this discussion is that we see this pattern in our culture, Bo, and it gives you, on one hand, you think, well, maybe this is good because our culture has a sense of sinfulness or people doing wrong, and they're going to be held to account. But I really think if you look at even politicians and celebrities who have stumbled, we know how to condemn, but I feel like in our culture, there's very little forms of restitution, right? And so it's almost like it's a closed economic system. Whereas, and I think Pope Francis has done a good job with this, highlighting that when you come to God, when you come to Christ, that door is, in a sense, always open. Here at the Newman Institute, we've been doing a series on St. Philip Neri. And St. Philip Neri, when he was almost 30 years old, he had this mystical experience where the Holy Spirit came upon him in a special way. And the rest of his life, he had pain in his chest. And after his death, they actually discovered that his heart was enlarged, and there were 2 ribs that had remained broken. But in the confessional, sometimes penitents would hear St. Philip's heart beating against his chest, and that was, for them, a reminder of God's compassion and love. And that stood out to me because I thought to myself, think about the great saints, or these great people in your life, and what makes them merciful or compassionate. You think of Philip Neri or St. John Vianney, and they spent hours in the confessional. And on one level, when the world sees that, they think, well, these guys they had a bunch of holdups about sin, and they must have been really fixated on that.
Right.
But that wasn't, the ones who can be merciful, it's not that they've left behind, like you said, a conception of justice. They understand the level that God has forgiven them, and therefore, one quick silly example, and I don't think she's listening, so I hope this is okay. Rachel and I had a neighbor in North Carolina, and she had a pug and a dachshund. And just to cut to the short, like, she thought loving the dogs was giving them whatever they wanted.
Right.
So we dog sat one time, and she would write down, like, at nighttime, give so and so, like, her dog ice cream with artificial sweetener on top of it. She's like, that's her bedtime snack, you know. Well, the dog's health, as you might not be, you're probably unsurprised, like, it suffered in the long run. And the reason I bring that up is, like, sometimes even in my own parenting, we think being a good parent is giving our children what they want, because, you know, and at some level we want to be friends with our kids. But God's love is perfect, and He's a loving Father, and it's not a matter of giving us whatever we want. And, you know, the people in our lives who their mercy has touched us, I think it's because they had a recognition of sin, and they combined that with a deep comprehension of the merciful love of God the Father.
Right, and, you know, this reminds me, like, you're talking about, like, overindulgence is not mercy.
Yeah.
I have not read anything about this whatever. The minute that I heard that the tweet thing was about Busch Light, I immediately stopped reading about it. Sorry, Iowans who love Busch Light. But one thing that I was thinking of, right, is on one hand, I realize with the sort of gotcha culture, it's not a matter of, you know, people being like they're not merciful, because in some ways we're the most stinking indulgent culture that's ever walked on the face of the earth. I realize that what we think mercy is like being merciful on someone else's behalf. Like, so we're always all like, oh, well, you should forgive that person. But then when it's us, right, we're going to, like, measure a pound of flesh, and you're going to remember everything you did for me, to me, and I'm going to exact that back. And it's actually the opposite, right? You know, you can only be merciful, like I said, if you've been offended. So when it comes to being merciful in your life, it must start with the people who have done things to you. Can you say, being merciful to them will allow a higher good, a higher justice to prevail, and I'm going to provide that? And then that starts to be the idea, right, about you can't apologize on someone else's behalf. But there's maybe one exception, which is that God Himself has said, I want you all to extend my mercy to other people. And in fact, God pretty much gives us this huge blank check, Bud, that we can't do for... I can't tell you, Bud, for instance, like, Bud, you better apologize for what someone... Or, like, you better be merciful for this offense someone else did. That has to come from you. But all of the offenses that occur to God, God has told all of His followers, you be merciful on my behalf. And that's really where we get the works of mercy. So you have the corporal ones, to feed the hungry, to give drink to the thirsty, to clothe the naked, to harbor the harborless, to visit the sick, to ransom the captive, and to bury the dead. And the spiritual works of mercy, to instruct the ignorant, to counsel the doubtful, to admonish sinners, to bear wrongs patiently, to forgive offenses willingly, to comfort the afflicted, and to pray for the living and the dead. God has said, on my behalf, you can be as merciful as you want. And He even gave us a sacramental way to do this, and said, you all have the priesthood, right through the priesthood, the keys of the kingdom. What you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and what you loose on earth will be loose in heaven. So God Himself could say, you know, because by right only He can extend this mercy to injustices done to Him, but He's extended it to all of us and said, on my behalf, be merciful. And so any offense done to God, we're the agents of mercy precisely through those things, right? When you heal the sick, the reason that's merciful is because death and sickness is the proper payment for our sin, right? We owe that in a certain way, and God said, you will be my agents for relieving that, because I have given you the ability, the capacity, the obligation to write off those debts for the sake of a higher good. And that's mercy, Bud, and this is Mercy Week. You have like 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
I went too long.
I think the one piece that you threw out there that jumped out to me was one of the spiritual works of mercy is admonishing sinners. And I think that does cut against the grain of our culture. But admonishing a sinner done charitably allows them to be restored or reconciled with God, and there's nothing more merciful than that.
And that starts to be it, right? Is like if it's like it's not nitpicking sinners, it's not nagging on sinners. Admonishing them is doing it on God's behalf and not ours. And that's the center of mercy, right? To do this on the behalf of God, who could ask for repayment down to the very last dot, and instead throws it all aside for the higher good. Folks, we got to go. This is the Uncommon Good. May Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, reign mercifully in our hearts, in our family, our city, our state, our nation, the world, the solar system, the galaxy, the whole kitten caboodle. This is the Uncommon Good, and we'll be back next week. Bud, quickly now, because we went a little too long, how could people participate in the spiritual life of Iowa Catholic Radio, joining in their prayers?
So please do pray with us daily. We pray the rosary. Bo, can you give me 1 second to pull up the liners? Maybe come back to prayer.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I always mess up the times. I don't want to throw off our listeners.
Yeah, no problem.
I have it, actually. Here we go.
It's your birthday, so we're going to forgive you for all of this, Bud. It's Mercy Week, so we have to.
Hold on, I'm blowing out candles. Okay. Pray the rosary daily at 5:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m., and 9:30 p.m. Also, the Angelus at 6 a.m. Our 9:30 rosary in the morning is dedicated to praying for our country.
That's right. Happy birthday. You only get one, buddy. No, I'm kidding. And then if you want to join us in and around the diocese, we have our two huge events coming up. One is Iowa Catholic Radio Women's Conference, The Soul of the Matter, Saturday, November 2nd, 2019, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at St. Francis of Assisi Parish Church in West Des Moines. All sorts of things going on. General admission is at 8:30, and then all the events start there. The easiest way to look at our three speakers and what else and how to register, iowacatholicradio.com, of course. And then the big one on December 7th, in association with Ut Fidem, and of course Iowa Catholic Radio, Father John Riccardo is going to be giving his presentation, Extraordinary News, an evening with Father Riccardo, at the Grand Ballroom at the Iowa Event Center. Get your tickets by going online at iowacatholicradio.com. General admission is $20. VIP tickets $150. To purchase, visit iowacatholicradio.com. It is easy to do. Or you can call 515-223-1150 or 515-564-8000. Folks, this is the Uncommon Good. We feel blessed to be a part of your life. Bud, one more time, happy birthday. I hope the next 40 years is as riveting as your first 40.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, have a good week.
Yep. Happy Mercy Week to everyone. This is The Uncommon Good, and we'll be back next week.
The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr is heard every week on wonderful Catholic stations like this one, and anytime on podcast. Just search for The Uncommon Good.